Hi, this is Craig Stocks here for Utah Desert Remote Observatories. You can find us online at utahdesertremote.com, and there's a blog post on the website related to this set of videos. This, I guess, is a bonus part of part 3 of the two-part series on using a non-destructive layer-based workflow in Photoshop. And when we ended part 3, we were working on different ways of color mapping narrowband data. And we really ended looking at this oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur variation. And what I wanted to do was explore what's probably a little bit more advanced technique, but I think it's useful and interesting to see in a way to really work with the colors even beyond what we did initially. So with that, let's hop into Photoshop. And this is where we left off at the end of part 3 of the two-part series, where we had the Orion Nebula color mapped into this, perhaps a little bit garish, but it's an interesting variation, and it shows what you can do with a non-destructive layer-based workflow. And let me just point out that all of the data is all available. Every adjustment, every decision we've made along the way is still available to us. So for instance, we could turn the stars on and off. If we want to look at a starless version of this image, we can go back and revisit any of the creative decisions we've made on color and saturation and contrast. We can even go back to the source data and adjust. For instance, if I go back to the hydrogen group, expand that, this is the levels adjustment that we use to tweak the presence and brightness of the hydrogen layer. If we want to go back and adjust that and make it more or less prominent, we can. If we find a satellite trail through one of the images that we didn't notice earlier, we can even go back and adjust that. So it gives us great ability to go back and revisit any of the decisions. What I want to show you here is a really powerful technique that's not commonly seen, and you do have to have the full version of Photoshop for this, so it won't work with Photoshop elements. But what we're going to do is put this copy of this image into the LAB color space, which has some unique color and editing capabilities. And then we'll bring that result back into this document of course, in a non-destructive manner. So the first thing I want to do is make a copy of this. So I'll go to Image, Duplicate, and we can just accept the default name, or we can give it something like LAB copy. And you normally see it with a capital L, lowercase ab, and that is an LAB, it's not lab. So I'll click OK, and it creates a copy of this. And I don't want the stars in this image. I really want to just work with the nebula in the background. So I'm going to go to the stars group in this duplicate of the original and just tap the delete key to delete that whole layer group. And then I'm going to, I could keep this all together as a group, but I'm going to go ahead and merge all of these together, which you can do a Command or Control E to merge all layers, or you can go to Layer, Merge Layers. And that just merges these all together. And the reason that's probably a good idea is when we do the conversion to LAB, we could get some unusual color shifts, and in particular, some of those layer adjustments may not be supported in the LAB color space. So it's not a bad idea to go ahead and flatten the image at this point. And I know that's non-destructive, and I've said never do that. Well, never do it unless you need to. So now we're going to go to Image Mode, and instead of RGB color, we're going to select LAB color. And what that does is change the color space. So instead of having red, green, and blue channels, which you normally have, we have a lightness, which is really just a nice, very nice monochrome version. We have an A channel and a B channel. And the A and B are very similar to the temperature and tint sliders that you would see in Lightroom or almost any raw processor. The A channel is kind of a red cyan, and the B channel is a yellow blue. And then lightness is just lightness and darkness. It's a monochrome version. One of the nice things about LAB is it really lets you separate brightness and tone from color. You can address each one individually. So the simple thing to do here is we'll go back to our layer and we'll just add a levels adjustment layer. And normally, if you go to this drop down, you would see red, green, and blue. Here we see lightness A and B. So let's start with the A channel. And normally when you're playing with levels, as you move the sliders around, you're playing with brightness or the presence of that element, of that piece, either the blacks or the whites or the midtones. With the A and B channels in LAB, you're playing actually with the saturation of that color. So for instance, if I go to the A channel and grab the left slider and move it in, I'm increasing the saturation of that color. If I go to the other end, I'm increasing the saturation of that end. And if I move the slider in the middle, I'm playing with the balance between the two, which is really kind of the color balance. So it gives you some interesting ways to boost saturation, kind of a color element at a time, in a very smooth way. The LAB is kind of the natural way Photoshop thinks about colors. It's kind of the universal CIE LAB color space, and it's very close to our visible colors and the way we see colors. Let's go to the B channel, and again we'll do the same thing. We'll play with what happens if we boost the contrast and the color of those individually and really bring out the blue and cyan in the background. And we might again play with the balance and see if there's a balance there that we really like. And you can do this iteratively. We can go back to the A channel again and play with it some more. It's easy to go too far, but we can always tone it down by changing the layer opacity. And let's say we get to this point and we decide that this is the combination that we like. Maybe I will tone this down a little bit, but I like the balance between the saturation of this yellow gold in the core and the blue and green in the background. And I don't know if there's a way to bring out more of the of the green in the core. Yeah, maybe something like that. So at this point, we'll say that we're happy with this. We like the way we've got the colors kind of intensified here, and we want to use this now in our original image. Rather than flattening this, to go from LAB back to RGB, you can run into some conversion issues. But if we make this a smart object, so I'll click to select both the adjustment layer and the base layer, right click out to the side of the name and choose Convert to Smart Object. It will put this background layer and the adjustment layer into one smart object. And even though the smart object here is in LAB color mode, if I tap V for the move tool and slide it back up to our original, move down into the document, hold the Shift key to keep things registered, and then release, it will drop that LAB image into our RGB, and it'll do the conversion to look at it in RGB. And there we have that LAB adjustment moved into our original RGB image. We can turn it on and off to decide if we like it or don't like it. If we kind of like it halfway, we can adjust the layer opacity to, let's say, 50% if we want it to only be 50% present or 20% present or 100% present. And we still have our stars on their own layer that we can turn on and off as we see fit. So that's a real powerful way to play with the colors and kind of push the colors around in the nebula and again separate from the stars because the stars are in their own layer group. The LAB color mode is something that's only available in the full version of Photoshop, but if you play with it and get a little bit of experience with it, you may find it real useful in a way to really enhance the colors in your image without affecting the stars. So I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions or comments, please drop those in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe to this channel. And I hope you have a great day today and an even better tonight under clear, dark skies. Thanks. I'll see you later.